Today we're coming to you from the campus of Southeast Missouri State University with the 19th president of this fine institution, Dr. Brad Hodson. Dr. Hodson, welcome to Very Interesting to Southeast Missouri.
That's right. Thank you.
So glad to have you with us today. We're glad to be on the campus.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for joining us. Tell us, first of all, we want to get to know you. We want to figure out who Dr. Brad Hodson is. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and kind of how we got to this point.
Thank you. Well, first of all, it's Brad. I go by my first name, but I'm a native Missourian, raised in southwest Missouri on a farm north of Joplin, and then went to college at Missouri Southern State University, and then began a career in higher education that's now lasted 30 years. And most recently at Missouri Southern as the executive vice president, and then last Valentine's Day was announced as the 19th president, and here I am.
Here you are. Exciting to have you here. Exciting. 19 presidents are not that many for an institution as old as Southeast Missouri State University.
Right.
So our expectation is that this won't be a 1 or 2 year tenure.
I hope not.
So what are your you've been here now at the time of airing, you've been here right at 1 month. So tell me what kind of your priorities are, at least getting started and over the next several months.
Well, I had the benefit between February and July of doing some tours through the region, all the way from St. Louis down to Kennett, from Poplar Bluff over to the Mississippi, and there were some themes that emerged in those interactions with alumni and friends and employers. One is that the region wants us to grow our impact. They really want us to be more visible and engaged and impactful in Sikeston and Malden and Dexter and Kennett and Poplar and all those wonderful places. So that was one of my takeaways. Another thing I heard consistently is we could do a better job of telling our story. We do some great things in the region. We just don't brag a lot, and maybe that's a Missouri humility thing. But they said we could be a little more loud and proud about the wonderful things that Southeast does accomplish. And then the last thing is here on this campus to make this a great place to learn for our students, a great place to work for our employees, and then a great place to belong for our supporters, our boosters, our donors, and our alumni. So those are some of the preliminary themes, not surprising, but they certainly will form the basis of a future strategic plan as we work towards a vision for the next 3 years.
Yeah, the current strategic plan has run its course.
It has.
And I assume that process is beginning. How does that process work?
Well, we need to form a strategic planning committee, and that'll be a lot of internal folks, but also I anticipate several external folks. That's one thing that, again, based on those interactions in the region, folks want to be engaged. And so pulling some folks from St. Louis and the Boot Heel and Cape County and getting some folks involved, those voices will be important as we formulate a plan to accomplish an updated vision. Then the exciting part to me is the implementation. I really, I'll monitor the situation, monitor the progress of the plan development, but where I get excited is implementation. I love to check things off the list, move the ball down the field. So I will get excited July 1 of 2026 when we implement the new strategic plan.
Well, and I'm excited to hear that because I've been involved with strategic plans that people work very hard to create the plan, and then it just sits on the shelf. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm excited to hear that you're excited about that implementation piece, because that is a big part of what makes, that's what makes it work.
Well, and a very common question for candidates for president or a new president is, what is your vision for the university? And I always push back a little bit and say, it's not my vision. I'm not going to come in and impose after 1 month on the job, here's where I think we should go for a storied institution that's been here for 153 years. And so I'm very comfortable turning over the reins of developing the vision, developing the plan to a broad group of stakeholders, internal and external, and then I come into play when it's time to implement.
Sure, absolutely. Let's kind of talk about how you got here. What was it about Southeast Missouri State University and the potential position of president that really got you intrigued, excited, willing to go through a pretty rigorous process to be selected as the president? I was on the search committee for your predecessor, and I know that's a pretty arduous process. So tell me what got you excited about this possibility.
Well, having grown up in Missouri and then worked in Missouri for the last decade at Missouri Southern, I had been around Southeast Missouri State, had been around Dr. Vargas and some of the leadership team at statewide meetings for higher education, and was always very impressed with the institution, its breadth of programs, its impact. And so when the job was posted, immediately, oh, that's a great place. I need to check that out. And began to do my research. So certainly the opportunity to lead an institution of this scale, of this reputation, was very attractive professionally. What made me very comfortable with applying for the job was when I did research about Cape Girardeau and the similarities between Cape and the region and Joplin and its region. So both tucked away in the corner of a state, contiguous other states around that you have to take into consideration, both impacted by the presence of interstate highways, 55 north and south here, I-44 east and west in Joplin, and then other smaller similarities like 2 major healthcare systems in each community. So when I looked at where the institution was located, I got more excited because I felt like there was a familiarity that I could bring something immediately to the table, having worked in Joplin, grown up in Joplin.
Well, another thing that I think you will find some familiarity and similar background with are a lot of the students. A lot of them come from rural areas. A lot of them come from, several of them come from farm families. They may actually be first generation.
First generation.
I remember sitting at graduation and Dr. Vargas asking to stand up if you're a first generation student, and a significant number of our graduates were first generation. And so that's kind of a constituency that certainly is part of what we're doing here. When I came to school here, one of the knocks on Southeast was they focus on St. Louis and they don't focus on us. So a lot of those kids from home would go south to Arkansas State, they'd go west to Southwest, then Southwest Missouri State. How do you and the university reach out to those kids in south of here,
right,
who may be going south to school, maybe going west to school?
Yeah, and that was something I heard on my travels throughout the region, and that's a fair assessment. Now, certainly St. Louis is of a scale that it cannot be ignored. We're an hour and a half from them. I almost think we have to have 2 different strategies. I think to try to have the same strategy for a very urban metropolitan area and a very rural, agriculturally centered area is incongruent. And so one of the things I hope comes out of the strategic plan is a strategy for St. Louis that we can execute in a separate way from a strategy for everything south of mile marker 80, as I've been told on I-55. And so, yes, we do need to be more visible and engaged. One of the board members on the Board of Governors, my boss, said, I want you to know the name of every school superintendent in the boot heel. And I think that's a great way to phrase that. It's that familiarity to go to Kennett, to be engaged, to sit down with the chamber, the employers, the leaders in the community, and listen. So when I went to Kennett, one of the things I heard was about the steel plants in Blytheville, just across the state line. What can you do to help train our workforce to be eligible for those jobs? And so we need to take a look at that. When I was in Kennett, one thing I heard is we're desperate for daycare. You used to operate a daycare, and then you stopped for whatever reason. Can you look at that and bring it back? Yes. So I think the strategy is to listen and develop unique relationships with each community, and know that what Kennett needs is not what Poplar Bluff, not what St. Louis needs, and begin to develop those unique strategies for each community, which hopefully will result in more students wanting to come up here, wanting to access the educational programs, and then go back to their hometown, their region, and make an impact over the next 50 years of their life.
Right. One of the greatest things that happened to me was when I did come to campus, was meeting and being exposed to those kids who came from different places. Sure. That's what college is really
That's
about,
right.
Getting to know people. I had a friend from home, and we rode back and forth together every weekend or every other weekend when we went home. But we weren't together all the time while we were here, and we developed a larger friend group. I wasn't in a fraternity. My brother had gone to school here, and he wasn't in a fraternity, so for whatever reason, that was my choice. I did live on campus all 4 years.
That's the key.
So Residence Hall was my fraternity,
That's
so
right.
to speak. And so One of the things that I kind of want to talk about, your job has multiple constituencies. So you've already mentioned your bosses, the Board of Governors, but you've got students, you've got faculty, you've got non-faculty staff, which sometimes has different ideas than faculty. You've got the legislature. Yeah. You've got the people that live in the region. So tell
donors.
me, you've got donors, you've got alumni, you've got all those folks. So tell me how you juggle all those different constituencies and how you build relationships with all those constituencies.
So really two different questions. I'll start with the relationship aspect. I think you have to be accessible. And I have been around presidents at other institutions that found comfort in their offices. Sure. They found that that was a safe place, and really you've got to put yourself out there. I was at the chamber breakfast this morning, and I probably talked to 100 folks, and every one of them had an idea about how the institution could do something better. And I love that. I'm not offended by that. I'm not intimidated by that sort of feedback. I've spent 30 years working with major donors who always have ideas about how folks could do things better. And so I think that's an opportunity for us to really elevate the institution. Not all the good ideas come from within Academic Hall. And so putting yourself out there, being accessible, so being in Jeff City routinely, and even in their home districts, interacting with legislators, being on the road with donors and employers and alumni, and then with students, faculty, and staff, just again, getting out of Academic Hall, putting yourself out there, going to events. One of the first things I've done here, and maybe it surprised folks, maybe it didn't, I insisted that every member of the executive team get a meal plan, because I want them eating in the dining halls. I want them interacting with the students. I want them giving feedback to Chartwells on the quality of the food. Food matters. Sure. I want them out and accessible, and I'll do the same. I did that to myself. I have a meal plan. So it's just getting out of Academic Hall, and even in some regard getting out of Cape County, being out there and accessible and visible, that I think that feedback, then folks believe that they can talk to you and that they are interested in talking to you, and if you make yourself accessible. I think that also helps, a good segue to my pin, which it just says, ask me. One of the things I heard on my travels was, well, I had a question, but I just didn't know if I could come and talk to you. And so I had these pins created that just say, it's an open door. If I'm in the grocery store, if I'm walking across campus, if I'm at the chamber breakfast, if you have a question, step up and ask me. Again, I'm not intimidated by that. I don't find that in any way off-putting. I'm going to learn something based on what you ask me, and then if I have the answer, I want to share it with you. There are no secrets in public higher education outside personnel issues or legal matters, but if you want to know why we're spending money a certain way, why we are pursuing something or not pursuing something, why we've hired or not hired, I have an obligation to answer that question, so I want you to ask me.
So building relationships are hugely important. How do you handle the fact that a lot of those constituencies may be at odds at times?
Well, they are at odds much of the time, but there's a lot that they have in common. They want the best for the students across the board. Now, we have an obligation to formulate what that strategy looks like, taking all that input and collating it into a cohesive path forward. And so in the end, we may not please everyone, but we certainly have to focus on the students. And so sometimes that's an internal push-pull. What is best for the students is additional work or responsibility for faculty and staff. Outside the institution, what's good for the students sometimes is a challenge for the community, for employers. And so the balance for that is we listened, we engaged, we took everyone's feedback, we charted a path forward that we think is best for the students in the institution. I hope you can join us on that journey, and we will continue to listen and engage. It's not a one and done. So I don't think you'll ever reconcile everyone's wish list into a single path forward. But as long as we keep our eyes on the students and serving the region, Southeast Missouri State University was placed here to address a teacher shortage in the 1870s, and that's a workforce issue, and we're still addressing workforce issues. So if the students are being served and the region is being served, I hope folks understand that we're doing the best with what we have and trying to get the most out of it.
In fact, the reason why it was said here in the first place, the normal school, the teacher shortage, is existing today.
Oh,
there's a teacher
absolutely.
shortage.
Oh, yeah.
My wife retired 3 years ago. She spent the last 2 years working because there's a shortage of teachers. She chose not to go back this year, but not because there weren't opportunities for a retired teacher to continue to work. How do we address that? We have a great education program here. How do we get kids into that program and encourage them to stay?
So that begins far before they get here to Southeast Missouri State, and we want to be partners in that. I'll reference a program that I helped start in Joplin. It was called the CAPS program, the Center for Advanced Professional Studies. It's a national model. And we got high school juniors and seniors out into the workforce to make a decision about whether or not they really wanted to be in the healthcare, in education, in industry. I'll use my own son as an example. He was just sure he wanted to be a lawyer. And then we placed him with the prosecuting attorney and with a local law firm, 1 semester each. He had a great time, he learned a lot, but he realized he didn't want to be an attorney. Sometimes that's the best service we can do for folks, is not have them go through 4 years of undergraduate school, get out there and within 6 months go, I don't like this. So those exploratory programs in high school particularly are very important. We need to partner with school districts all across the region to make those opportunities possible. And then to demonstrate to those kids down in the Boot Heel that might be inclined to go to other states, we have great programs here in the areas you're interested in. Stay home, stay at an affordable tuition rate, be a part of the region's success, and then go back to your hometown and really have a long-lasting impact.
You know, a couple of the things that are important to those regions that region you're talking about are the regional campuses.
Right.
One in Sikeston, one in Kennett. We had one in Malden, but the number of students that were actually participating on campus became so small that we had to close that while I was on the board. A real challenge. But I know several kids who have graduated from Southeast and have done all their classes on the regional campus. And so how do we, I know those are not money makers, but how do we continue to have, I think that's a great place to have a presence. How do we continue to have that presence and keep those campuses engaged and alive? Yeah.
And they do have a great history here. Other universities across the country are making the regional campus model work. We have to look at them and see what they're doing because we do want to be physically present. Now, in the era of online learning, you certainly can get a degree from your home, from your office. But I think to the point you made earlier, it lacks the engagement, the connection to the institution, the opportunity to learn from other people directly. That it's a much more robust education, but online learning is never going to go away. And I've taken online classes, I've taught online classes, I understand the pros and the cons. But the other thing for those regional campuses is I think it's a great opportunity for us to partner with community colleges, to be arm in arm with Three Rivers and Mineral Area to make sure that we are complementing each other's programs, that we are serving the region collaboratively and maybe not at cross purposes. I've already been to visit Dr. Payne at Three Rivers and been to visit Dr. Gilgour at Mineral, and both of them brought up the regional campuses as an opportunity. They both have regional campuses of their own. Why are we operating facilities across town from each other? Dr. Payne in particular saw the opportunity for us to go together and really grow something special. In Kennett was the example he gave, and I don't want to get out in front of Dr. Payne, but very preliminary discussions, but something that landed on fertile ground. I said, yes, exactly. Why would we not collaborate and serve that community more effectively? So the community colleges will be great partners.
Well, and that's how that campus started.
Yeah.
As a collaboration. And then, honestly, personalities got involved, and it became less collaboration and more combative.
Sure.
I think over the last several years, there's been much more interest in collaborating than there was, 15 years ago.
Well, think of the emotional and financial resources that were spent competing.
Absolutely.
And that may be okay in the short term if you really feel like we've got to do a little bit of a push-pull, but long term, competing doesn't serve anyone's interests. And so that's why I went to Poplar Bluff, I went to Farmington, I sat in their offices and just had a very candid conversation about the past is the past. I'm new, let's move forward. And I'm accustomed with Crowder College in Missouri Southern, with Fort Scott Community College in Pittsburgh State, to those very close working relationships, and that's what I want for Three Rivers and Mineral.
Sure, sure. So one of those constituencies, let's pull that out. Let's pull the students out for a second. You're following, maybe, at least in my memory, the most popular president among the students that I've seen in my lifetime. Bill Stacy, who was president when I came to college here, was probably a close second as far as being out among the students. But Dr. Vargas, if you went out to lunch with him, there'd be 10 students come up and want to take a picture with him. I mean, that's just he was just a bubbly personality, is a bubbly personality. So what do you do to claim that constituency and let them know I'm a different person, but I'm still very interested in what's going on with you?
Well, and Dr. Vargas has done me a great service in setting that up as something that's cultural here now, and I'm very grateful for that. I can only be Brad, sure. And so I will do my best to be Brad, but that means, again, making yourself accessible, being visible. Students aren't going to come to Academic Hall looking for the president. I've got to be out in the buildings. I've got to be at the events. Sue and I have already mapped out most of the fall to go to a lot of the travel athletic events because we want to meet the families, we want to meet the student athletes, the fans, the boosters, and so the students are very important. I hope that they like me. I would love that. I would love to have the same reputation as Dr. Stacy and Dr. Vargas, but that will require me to be visible and accessible and fun. And I think I am a fun person. I like to interact with people. I like people. The students I've met have been fantastic. Now there will be 9,000 of them come back in 2 weeks. Right. Plenty of opportunity for me to build those relationships. And the proof will be in the next year or two to see if they have that same affinity for me that they obviously had for Dr. Vargas.
Sure. Similar question with regard to faculty. Faculty has a tendency to think that the leadership should come from the classroom. Dr. Vargas did, although they weren't always happy with him, but you don't come from the classroom. So tell me how you convince them or how you work with them, because that's generally what their mindset is. He's not been in the classroom, so that's a mark against him.
Right.
So tell me how you deal with that.
So I would ask them to consider the role of the 21st century university president. And there was a time for several hundred years when the president was the first among equals as a faculty member, and that served higher education very, very well. In the 21st century, we ask our presidents to be very involved in fundraising, in governmental relations, in community relations, in strategic planning. Not to say that those are mutually exclusive from an academic background or a knowledge of a discipline, but that's where my entire career has been. So what I said to the search committee is, I have great respect for the Academy. I will look to the provost, Dr. Doug Koch, to lead the academic development and programming and faculty. Let me focus on acquiring the resources to make you successful, because I think that's really where I can make a difference. You don't want me telling you or working with you on how to teach a class or how to launch a new academic program. I trust you. I trust Dr. Koch, the deans. You all bring that forward and then look to me to acquire the resources from donors, the state, from the community, to make those things a reality. And I think if we partner and everybody understands their role and where my strengths are and where the faculty strengths are, I think we can do amazing things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I know that's always a challenge.
Yeah, and again, it's like the students. The faculty will either learn that I am a huge supporter of their work and doing everything I can, or they will continue to see me as someone that didn't come from the academy, and I can't change my background. And again, I'll just be Brad, and we'll do the best we can.
Absolutely. So one other area that I really am interested in hearing your take. You've been here a month. This morning you were at the chamber breakfast. The idea of town and gown. Right. So the relationship between the city and the university. You know, there are a lot of communities that you drive through, or you come into a community and you're like, this is a college town.
Right.
There's no doubt this is a college town. This is what this everything revolves around this institution. There are times that Cape Girardeau feels that way, and there are times when it feels like they're at odds.
Right.
So your experience is not great yet with regard to how all that dynamic will work, but what are your expectations within the community?
Well, I think communicating with them where we're going and why we're going and what the impact will be, and again, being very transparent will go a long way. I also know that there's a natural amount of anxiety about town-gown relations. I think it was my first or second week I was walking downtown, it may have even been a Saturday, and someone came up and they kind of grabbed my arm and they said, "You can't close Normal Street." And I said, "I didn't know I was going to close Normal Street," because they lived in the neighborhood just east of campus and all the parking would be pushed. And I said, "Well, let me learn about the issue and I'll get back to you." And so sometimes it's just the reassurance that you may believe that we're going to do something that will dramatically change your life experience, your home value, but we're always trying to work in the best interests of the campus and the community. Have a great relationship already with Mayor Kinder and Dr. Haskins at the city, been over to the county commission to engage with them, certainly all the chambers. And if we're all pulling in the same direction, again, it's sort of like the question we had earlier. We won't always agree. We will disappoint our stakeholders as much as we please them from time to time. But I think if everyone can understand that we're listening, we're engaging, we're taking the information, and we're trying to make the best decision we can, and we're all going to get there together. But town gown is sometimes difficult. I've not sensed that culture here. Sometimes you go into a town and you can sense immediately that they're fussing with each other. I haven't sensed that here, and it's my job to make sure we never do.
Right. And there have been some great cooperative agreements. I mean, the Show Me Center is a great example.
The airport.
The airport and things we've done there. You know, even the river campus.
Yeah. Oh, my
and
gosh.
Rerouting roads and all the things that went on down there
Fantastic.
has just been a great example. So again, as I say, sometimes it feels like there's a great bond. Sometimes it feels like they're at odds. So
well, and with any relationship, whether it's with a family member or a friend or a partner in business, if you take your toys and go over here and just don't engage, then that's where the relationship can kind of deteriorate. As long as I keep going to city council meetings, as long as I keep going to chamber breakfast, as long as people will ask me and that communication is wide open, I think, again, we may fuss with each other for a day or two here or there, but over time, we can always find a path forward.
Sure. Again, as of today, you've been here a month. Anything that so far has surprised you?
About the university, the community?
Just about, the job, the university, the community, all those things.
Well, I've said this at a couple of events. I've never lived in a community that had drive-through convenience stores. That is phenomenal. That is genius. I just stopped on my way and got an iced tea, pulled through the drive-through, and I thought, where am I? This is great. So that was a lot of fun. And I've already called folks back home and say, you guys need to look into this. This is a great idea. Sue and I both have been very warmly welcomed. And I've used this example too at a couple of venues. We're nice in Missouri. It's very natural to say, let me know if you need anything. But I've had people reach up and again grab my arm. Now, honey, you call me if you need anything. And you're like, they really mean it. And they're probably going to be offended if I don't call. So the warmth, the engagement has been phenomenal. I've never received so many restaurant recommendations in my life. And we tried as many as we could, and they're delicious. I love them all. But it's been a lot of fun. I haven't stumbled across at the university anything that was just shocking. When you go through an interview process, everyone's putting their best foot forward. The institution is trying to paint a picture that would attract candidates. The candidates are trying to paint a picture that attracts the search committee. So certainly there have been a few times since I've been here that the chief financial officer would step in and say, you need to know X, Y, or Z. And you're surprised, but you're not shocked because that's not the sort of stuff you put on the front page of your job advertisement. The school is in a very healthy financial situation. At the same time, the state just halved their core increase, and so that was an $800,000 change for us that we'll have to address. We do understand that international enrollment will be a challenge this fall. Those are full fee-paying students from out of the country. They can't get visas, and so we will be down substantially in international students, which will have a financial impact on the institution. All completely understandable, in some ways all predictable, and something that we can work collaboratively with the faculty and the staff and the board to work our way through. But no real holy cow moments yet.
Good.
So,
you mentioned you expect enrollment, especially from international students, to be down. Enrollment overall is significantly lower than it was 20 years ago.
Right.
There was a year we were over 12,000 students.
Right.
And now we're 9,500, I guess, last year. Without expectation of getting back to 12,000. I mean, I know that there are fewer kids graduating from high school right now because just for various reasons, just fewer kids in the region, whether they've moved away, families have moved away, whatever the case may be. But how do we continue to provide this quality education for a smaller number of students?
Yeah. Well, and let's go back for a second to how do we stabilize enrollment? And certainly the visa situation has evolved over the last couple of years. But overall, we will be up this fall, we believe, in first-time freshmen and transfer students and returning students, domestic students. And so that's good. Higher education across the country has not done a good job of communicating the value proposition, particularly as costs have risen. I think we were still back in the 80s. When I graduated from high school, I was going to go to college. And I don't ever remember sitting down and thinking about it. My mom and dad, you're going to college. And I said, yeah, I'm going to college. And all my friends went to college. And so I think we sort of were in a sort of a bubble for a long time in higher ed that was a natural decision-making process. And this generation of students has begun to question that, and their parents have begun to question it. Is college worth it? Is a very common headline across a lot of publications. The answer is absolutely yes, but we have to do a better job of telling that story rather than assuming that the students and their parents will figure it out. So that is, again, part of that effort we would have to communicate to Southeast Missouri, to St. Louis, to the region. Yes, a SEMO education is worth it. Yes, you are going to come out prepared for a career. And yes, we can help you get where you want to be in 10 years. We've just not done a good job of doing that. So,
when I graduated high school, I was on my way to University of Missouri. That's where my dad had graduated from, and that was just the plan. I was going to go to undergrad and go to law school, and life was all planned out. Then I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship here offered that I couldn't pass up. So how do we get that kind of word out to people that not only is it affordable, but there are opportunities for you to be able to pay for college right here locally?
So it's funny you should bring that up. We just redid, even before I arrived, redid our scholarship model to make it more competitive, to make it a better value for students. I think the key to that is constantly evaluating that. I worked at an institution previously that hadn't evaluated their automatic aid model in maybe 8, 9, 10 years, and it got away from them. And they wondered why enrollment was declining. Well, I'll be darned, other schools had bumped their aid up, and that institution had not. They fixed it, made a big difference. So I think we always have to be looking at that and watching what our competitors are doing. Another part of that are privately funded scholarships. So again, being very aggressive in fundraising to create scholarships for all of our academic programs, for all of our students from different regions. Donors want to support students and they want to support the institution, but they need us to be that conduit and open that door. So I think there's a big role for both institutional aid and privately funded scholarships to help make college affordable. Again, back to your original point, first-generation college students, maybe mom and dad didn't go to college, and so funding a college education is a little intimidating. The great folks in student financial aid downstairs are very adept at sitting down one-on-one with mom and dad and the student and saying, okay, let me help you figure out how to fund this based on your area of interest, your grades, your ACT score, your mom and dad's ability to contribute, and put that package together, because it's daunting even for someone that may have gone to college. That's still a very complicated puzzle, but if you don't figure it out, they're not going to come to school here. So we've got to be out front of that.
I mean, for a lot of families, just filling out the forms is very difficult.
My gosh, yeah. And so both my wife and I are college educated. My wife comes from parents who were college educated, and we looked at the FAFSA and thought, holy cow, where do I get this information? And we figured it out. But I can imagine for folks that it's their first foray into those sort of questions, it's daunting. We're here to help.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great, because it is. It's easier for some of them just to give up and say, you know what,
not for me.
Isn't something we can do.
Yeah.
So, well, at the end of the day, what are your hopes and dreams over the next several years here at Southeast Missouri State University?
Well, certainly I see, again, my role as funding and facilitating the vision, and so I'm very excited for the strategic plan when it's done and we can implement. And I hope that I can have an impact on the institution that is compounded for many, many years. You always want to set the school up for success after you leave. And so I think for us, most public regional higher education across the country has tried since the 1960s to be all things to all people, to have a very broad array of programs, to try to offer a little bit of everything. I think where I can add some value is helping the institution do an assessment and see where our centers of excellence might be, to really invest in things that are attractive to prospective students, that serve a very defined workforce need, and where our faculty have great expertise. And where those three things come together, let's invest, let's grow. That doesn't mean we won't do some of the other things we've always done, but higher education, regional public higher education, has always sort of funded everything equally and tried to be a very broad institution. To your point earlier, with enrollments tightening across the Midwest, that's becoming more and more difficult. So leading that conversation, helping the faculty, the staff, the community, the region's workforce, employers, help us make those decisions and say, you're really good at this, and we really need that, and the students want that. Let's work together to grow that, is really the future of Southeast. And I'm really excited to be a part of it. You mentioned earlier, we don't know how long we'll be here. I'd be thrilled if I could be here 10 years like Dr. Vargas and the predecessors, and really have a great legacy that people say, Dr. Hodson set us up for success for 50 years after he left. That would be a great thrill.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Brett.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate you inviting us onto campus and sharing your vision and information with us about yourself and who you are.
Come back. We'll have more to talk about after the strategic plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Brad Hodson, president of Southeast Missouri State University, has joined us today. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.